I'm so excited to be able to say that Akai has done me the immense honor of sending over an MPC One Retro Edition for me to make some videos with. This is on loan for the time being, and so I will make a few videos and then send it back, but I can't stress enough just how awesome it is that they did that, and it's really because of viewers like you and people who've watched my channel and helped support me by liking, subscribing, and everything else you do. So sincerely thank you so much to both Akai and to you for watching. Alright, so the biggest reason I wanted to try out the MPC One is that it's always seemed like the Golidilocks device, and more importantly, the perfect beginner's DAWless device. I often think about how when I started doing music production back around 2008, I was using a version of FL Studio that wouldn't let me live record MIDI in. I don't even think I could live record audio in, although I could be wrong on that. And thinking not just about where software is now compared to where it used to be, but also what you can do with hardware, it's kind of amazing to imagine being a new music producer now. A lot of people who watch my channel are probably more seasoned than maybe a beginner, but I do think there are people who watch the channel who are interested in getting into this stuff. And so I've always said, even though I've used the MPC Live, the MPC Live 2, the Akai Force, the Machine Plus, I've always said that I'm pretty sure the MPC One is the best place to start. And after spending some time with it, I feel fairly confident that that is true. The barrier to entry to get into music production with something like the MPC One is so much lower than almost everything else, especially for what it can do. There are channels out there who I think make really cool videos about how you can use software or other things to not have to get hardware, how you can save money by just using a computer or just using a phone. But those channels make this assumption that everybody already has a computer or a phone or a tablet capable enough to do music production, and more importantly, that that is a way that's going to be inspiring to people. It is almost always universally true that if you just use some kind of computer you have around the house, it will probably be a cheaper way to make music. But I think a lot of people are interested in DAWless music because it is so hands-on. And because it takes away the distractions of a computer, it feels like a different environment, and there's just something magical about standalone. And so with that in mind, I have been really impressed with the MPC One. The form factor, the capabilities, the sacrifices that they made to make this thing happen are absolutely worth the trade-offs of the value of the price. I've seen this in the used market for like $550. I think it's around $699 right now. And compared to, the bigger brother devices like the MPC Live 2 or the Akai Force, both of which I really like, it is so much more affordable. Factor in the ability to use things like payment plans with Zounds or other companies, or buy them in the used market, and the MPC One sort of stands alone for how powerful it is, for how cheap it is. When you're in this range, you're almost comparing it to things like an OPZ, an SP404. These devices are a little bit cheaper, depending on if you buy them new or used. But what you get in the box with the MPC One, it just blows those other devices out of the water, especially with the most recent updates. We're talking about amp simulations if you plug in a guitar, full vocal suites if you plug in a microphone, a bunch of really fantastic free plugins, and a really nice suite of paid upgrade plugins, which go on sale pretty frequently. Those paid plugins include a full 4-operator FM synthesizer, a recreation of the Moog Model D or the Mini D, and then Stage EP, Stage Piano, Studio Strings. I mean, again, there's just so much you can do now with both what comes with it out of the box and additional paid plugins, and that doesn't even include the fact there's a huge, vibrant community of people who have made key groups and beat packs and all kinds of stuff, sample packs, all kinds of things. There's a splice integration. So you just look at everything this thing can do and everything it is, and I do truly think it's a little mind-boggling. I also want to shout out to Akai support, because when I first got this, I was having some difficulty activating the MPC instrument plugins collection. I had tried to build a bridge to my internet connection over Ethernet, and then they just had me plug directly into the router, and that seemed to solve it. Full disclosure, Akai did give me a code for those plugins, as I've acknowledged in my other videos about them, and so that is part of, this whole setup. I have those plugins to use with this loaner device. But when I was talking to them, the one thing I noted was I did wish this thing had Wi-Fi, and they pointed out, there were sacrifices made to get the cost down to what it is. And with that in mind, I think those were the right sacrifices, because it is just, again, incredible how much power you get for the price of this device. And that's really what is just blowing my mind over and over again. As someone who uses more powerful and more expensive devices, more powerful in quotes, I guess, but more expensive and larger devices, there are things about this device that I like more than some of those devices. For example, as almost anyone who's ever had an MPC One will tell you, the button per function of this thing is so nice. There are so many buttons, hardware buttons. There are so many hardware buttons that, actually trigger and let you go to different elements of the device that, especially as an MPC Live 1 user, it's just night and day how much you don't have to touch the screen and menu dive or use shortcuts on the pads. it's all here. And if you hold shift, there's a secondary function for most of these buttons as well. Another thing that, really impressed me, but it's a little more vain, is how much I love the retro coloring. If you've been watching my channel for a while, you might know that about a year ago, I made a video saying I don't need the MPC Live 2 Retro Edition. I was obsessed with that colorway, and I ended up just getting the normal MPC Live 2 because I got a really good deal on it. It had an included SSD and a case, but it is so nice to kind of finally get my hands on a Retro Edition, let alone from Akai directly. Even if it's alone, it's just so cool. So again, I'm just so grateful. But yeah, I can't stress enough just how much bang you get for the buck with this thing. And in the off chance you don't know too much about it, let's dive a little deeper. So with the MPC One, you have access to a variety of different types of sound generation and playback. You have drum kits, plugins, key groups, MIDI. There's some CV stuff, but I don't do anything with CV. And there are audio tracks where you can record audio as looping audio tracks you can add effects to. One of the things a lot of people love about the MPCs is that you can add effects, up to 4 effects per track, but you can also add these effects per pad. So if you were, say, in a drum kit and you went to pad mix, each of these pads has their own 4 insert slots. There are also sends and returns, and that's getting a bit ahead of ourselves, but it just gets down to the heart of how amazing it is and how much power there is in this thing and how much flexibility there is. To showcase some of what this can do, I actually made a track on here. So it's just a loop right now. There's 2 elements of it. So I'll show the first version and the second version. Here's the first version. Okay, so this is made of 6 tracks, and I'll walk through what each one is. So this first track is actually just a one-shot sample from Bad Snacks, one of my favorite producers and YouTubers. She does amazing stuff with strings and beat production, and she did this sample pack that has a bunch of string sounds. And so I added EQ, a delay, a spring reverb, and we can go back to track and I'll solo it. So this became the bedrock of the sound of the beat. And then I added a drum loop and I tend to actually just program my own drums, but now that I feel pretty confident in how to program drums, I will sometimes add loops and then tweak them and mess with them. So this is a drum loop from a Mr. Hudson pack. And I've actually automated the cutoff filter, and I've automated that cutoff filter on a filter that I added on top. And so yeah, you can record automation by holding shift and enabling automation. That's the secondary function, and then overdubbing what you're playing. And then I tend to just push that again when I'm done so that I don't write any automation after I've done that. That sounds obvious, but I've done it on accident, so be careful about that. After this, we have this track, which is a plugin. And this is Fabric XL, which is one of the newer paid plugins, but it has some really nice sounds. This is Emotion Bells. And I'm fairly certain, actually, I don't think I did any automation on this one. Fair enough. This is the Mellotron, which is a recreation of the Mellotron device, which is a really cool tape-based, old school synthesizer, sample-based thing that's just awesome. It has these really cool Beatles-style sounds. This is a flute sound, which I believe, add some effects to, but I might just be tweaking them in the actual program. Yeah, so I'm tweaking the cutoff, which you can do with these cue links, which are these knobs that map to different parts of the screen. And I just real-time recorded the cutoff. And I also added delay and spring reverb, and I don't think I'm automating those, but those are effects that are going there as well. Let's go to the next one on solo. Here we go. This is a bass, clearly. This is another Fabric XL. This is the warm sub preset. All right, the next one is the last, and this is a drum kit that I believe I made myself. Let's see. Yeah, this is a drum kit I made myself using different samples from splice packs. and I added a compressor and a filter to this, and I automated the filter similar to some of the other tracks. I've been really into Glass Animals lately, and I've been watching a lot of videos and like listening to a lot of their music, and the way they use sub bass is really cool. And so I've been trying to use that a little bit, and this is very inspired by them. All right, so one of the things that got added in more recent updates is an amp simulator. And so I use that, just plug my guitar directly into the MPC One through one of the inputs, and then added some guitar. So that is this audio track here. I have 5, I believe, audio tracks. Yep, and they all have different granulator, air delay, amp sims, stuff like that. And I'll show you what that sounds like. So it's not perfectly mixed, and it's still a work in progress. Depending on, your level of skill and how long you've been doing music production, that might have sounded really good to you or very bad to you. I think it's important to note that like listening to what other people do with the device is a cool way to hear what kind of sounds it can have, especially if you're looking for internal synth sounds and things like that. But I think the most important takeaway I want you to have from the video is just how much is possible with this thing, and the huge variety of types of music you can make. As far as limitations, there are a lot of people who wish there was a full arranger mode, similar to like the Akai Force or the Machine Plus. You're working really in these sequences, which you can build up into a chain of sequences in a song mode, but it's not quite the same as a linear arrangement. I prefer to make songs in clips or in sequences or loops or however you want to call them, and then I export from this device into Ableton is my preferred DAW. You can take the stems out of here. You can export down, I believe, to even the pad level, but at least the track level. You can take that information and then, tweak it, mix it, master it, and do all that somewhere else. There are a lot of plugins in here, including master compressors, limiters, maximizers, and all sorts of things where you really could finish a track here. If you added some effects to the master chain and got really comfortable with these, you could really do everything in here, even including vocals and things like that. So I do think it's a really cool starting place. In general, I would say I recommend finishing tracks on a computer for now. In general, that's just how I like to work. But one of the things that's so magical about this device is you really don't have to. There's just so much power here and so much capability here. And it's not exclusive to this. There are other devices I feel similarly about, the Machine Plus, the Akai Force, the larger MPCs. The thing that's just so magical about this one is the size, the buttons per function, and most importantly, the price. The price to performance ratio of this device is just unparalleled. I truly am blown away by it, and I really think it's such a good both beginner device and a Golidilocks device. I definitely have recency bias, and I'm in the honeymoon phase of this thing, at least this hardware configuration. I've used the software for years now on different devices, on the MPC Live 1, the 2, etc. I've never used the hardware of the MPC One. And so I definitely have a recency bias, but there's part of me that wants to be like, hey, Akai, can I buy this from you? I want to keep this forever and sell my MPC Live 2 just because of how much I like this form factor, which I've heard is true from other artists as well. There's just something about this thing that's just so cool. If you enjoyed this video, consider liking and subscribing. Thank you so much to my Patreon patrons, to all of you who've listened to my music on Spotify and Apple Music and anywhere else. You're my heroes. Truly, I'm in such a privileged position to be able to try this gear and to be able to talk about this stuff with you. And it doesn't happen without you. So thank you so much. Have a wonderful holiday and stay safe and stay warm. If you're, somewhere like me or somewhere colder, it's pretty wild out there today. Okay. I'll see you soon. Bye.